Recording stopped. Recording in progress.
Well, good evening, everybody. This is a work session of the Greenbelt City Council. My name is Emmett Jordan. I serve as mayor. Council, would you introduce yourselves, please?
Kristen Weaver, Mayor Pro Tem.
Danielle McKinney, council member.
Jenny Pompey, council member.
Amy Niesel, council member.
Rodney Roberts, City Council.
Okay, any information items?
Yeah, I have one as well.
And I've got one. Mr. Summerall, anything? Okay. Well, we hold these work sessions on Mondays, Wednesdays, several times a month to exchange information with stakeholders, to gather information from staff, advisory boards, or residents. No votes or formal actions are taken at work sessions. Our work sessions and meetings are open to the public except for executive sessions as authorized by state law so that residents and others can observe council's deliberations. We do strive to provide reasonable opportunities for the public to voice opinions on matters being considered, and we'll pause periodically for public comment. During these times, if you wish to address council or the city administration, you can raise your hand if you're in the room, and after being recognized, if you just go over to the podium, and please state your name, and if you can give us an idea of what part of Greenbelt or where you live, that would be helpful for the minutes. If you are on Zoom, you can submit a comment using the Q&A tab at the bottom of your screen, or you can raise your virtual hand, and once again, after being recognized, you can make a statement. We do ask, we don't accept anonymous comments online. And if you're watching on cable TV, Facebook, or YouTube, you can send an email to questions@greenbeltmd.gov. Please limit your remarks to 3 minutes and speak on one topic related to the question under consideration. And we ask that you avoid disparaging or questioning the motives of others, and in general, please be civil in your remarks. So tonight's work session is an administrative work session. We'll be talking about council operations. We'll be talking about the agenda a bit, talking about some of the advisory boards and council standing rules. So it should be a lively discussion. I know part of this discussion actually came from our city clerk's some suggestions. You know, we've recently updated the city website, and as a part of that, some of the functions of agenda preparation and the way that we list things have changed a bit. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. The packet here actually lists council operations initially. I think I'll kick it over to City Manager Summerone. How are you tonight?
I am doing well. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
That's
Good evening,
fantastic.
council.
I'm joined tonight by our city clerk, Bonita Anderson. So we, in reference to your statement about the initial intent of the meeting or what triggered the meeting, as you know, we've updated both our website and our agenda management platform. One of the recommendations we received by the Civic Plus team during the transition was, I'm sorry, Miss.
I think they may not be able to hear online.
Okay.
Sorry, I just saw comments there before we go any
Oh,
further.
the microphone is muted. Can we unmute the microphone?
It might,
Jamari, can we
there,
unmute?
I think
There you
maybe,
go.
hopefully, Ms. Davis, if you can't hear us, let us know.
I see the closed captioning is picking up, so that should, that means that it's going out to Zoom.
Right. We should proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So we had received the recommendation from Civic Plus about our agenda, how to incorporate best practices from other municipalities. And one of the challenges, or not challenges, but an area of improvement should council want to make the changes, how we list consent agenda items. Currently, council, the current agenda structure includes consent agenda just as a regular agenda item, and they're distinguished by an asterisk on the item. The best practice that Civic Plus has incorporated in the system is to nestle all the consent agenda items under consent agenda. And within our current agenda template, that is there's a specific item for consent agenda. We just don't nestle items on there. Initially, we thought that we needed a modification on the standing rules procedures, but Bonita and I have reviewed the standing rules and really combed through the intent and the wording on page 18. Sorry, not page 18. Page 18 is the item about meetings, which is an issue that recently came up. It's page 9 of the standing rules. The language really doesn't specify how the consent agenda items are spread out through the agenda packet. So one of the things, if should council feel comfortable with adopting the recommendation from Civic Plus of nestling the items, we have determined that we don't need to modify the standing rules based on how our standing rules are structured, but we do need direction from council if you want to continue to have the consent agenda items as they're currently presented, just as a regular agenda item distinguished by an asterisk, or if you would like them nestled under the part 1 of the agenda under consent agenda. That way, I think for the public, it provides greater clarity that once you approve the consent agenda under that section, all items under consent agenda are approved. The reason on intent, I believe that council's intention on the consent agenda is as such because in the page 10, item 2, approval of agenda and consent agenda, it spells out how an item moves out of consent agenda onto the regular agenda. So I think that perhaps the language considered that they could be nestled, but it wasn't explicit.
Yeah, well, thank you. I've been thinking about this for a while. From time to time, a resident comes to a meeting and they are sitting here in the room with us, expecting an item to come up. And you can see the anticipation, and as the night rolls on, they're still sitting there and they're waiting for the item.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, I think that it would be a little bit more clear to actually list the individual items with a brief description, like one line under the consent agenda, and perhaps we could keep the number with an asterisk lower. But I think that would be less confusing for people. Council, what do you think?
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
that
please.
seems reasonable. I think that will be much clearer that these are all items that we're not necessarily discussing unless someone chooses to move it off of the consent agenda.
There's always a possibility.
Then the standing rules specifically address how the items are moved off the consent agenda.
Right, but it would be listed up front there, so.
Correct.
Okay, so I'm not, any other comments? If not, I'm assuming that we are giving you the direction to go ahead and do that, make that modification.
Excellent, thank you. Ms. Anderson, do we need anything else? Okay.
Were there any other changes that are sort of precipitated by the new system and technology that we have around the website and preparing the agenda and listing things, the meetings that have occurred previously, work sessions and council meetings?
There were a few changes that we made, none that have been material to how council conducts its business. The most significant change you would have observed is how the agenda looks. So we've now added a header and a footer to the agenda packets. So that's a technology that the new agenda management allowed us to do better. The old one we could do headers and footers. It's just an older system, and we needed to have it customized to do that part. So for us, the agenda packet looks better on our end, both on the digital, on the back end, and once it gets published and released to you all. So I hope that change has been to your benefit, that is, it's better for you. There's a lot less white space on the document, so it makes better use of all the space on the page as materials are produced.
So I was looking at the website today, and I noticed when you go to the agenda and minute section, you have another option now. You can download the information as a PDF or as a text file.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just wondering, I didn't actually download the text file. Is that just like plain text, or is it like a Word document? Or I don't know.
Benita, are you aware how those downloads are? I know we can share directly from the system, and that was one of the features that we liked, so we could do that. The meeting files, I think I'll have to look into whether it could be downloaded as straight text. I know that we can download the individual documents or the full packet as a PDF file on the system, and that's an added feature. That didn't answer your question.
Should be helpful. Well, I just looked and I was just wondering. So, and for the edification of and assistance of the public, these changes and just getting everything up to speed and getting all the information back there on the website takes time. You were mentioning how many documents are actually a part of the website. It's thousands.
Yes, we have over 3,000 council meeting records that are videos, minutes, and council packets. They go back to 2009, correct, Ms. Anderson? And so we're working on uploading those. For those files, we're doing what's called a batch upload. We're going through what's called a file transfer protocol, where we upload all these large files into what looks like a folder, and then they get placed in the website. Back in the day, that's how websites used to be updated, through a file transfer protocol process, and now it's direct on a page. So we've come a long ways. So the team is renaming those files, and that's been a lot of manual work. Some files do need to be converted because under Granicus, they were either XML format and HTML format files, and not PDF files. So they were opening up as websites, which it's not not the right format for archiving. So some of those files need to be need to be converted before they can be uploaded. So we're going through that friction point of troubleshooting and uploading files. What's on the website now is for all meeting documents and videos going back to January 13th meeting. So we uploaded this calendar year's meetings, and that's been a manual process. The team, if we need to upload files manually, we will get it done. We're trying to use this file transfer protocol process to upload all those 3,000 records.
FTP.
An automatic process. So there's some growing pains there.
Yeah, and I think we need to just ask the public to give us a little grace and bear with us because it's a lot of documents, and in order to kind of move forward, we have to reassess what's happening, what's happened in the past. I was just wondering, so in terms of all those documents, are we going to archive any information, or is there a state law about how far back we have to keep information on the website?
We are required to keep the minutes in perpetuity, so we'll hold on to the council meeting minutes forever. Um, the videos, we can delete videos as soon as council adopts meeting minutes, but that has not been our practice. We have video recordings online going back to 2009. Our intent is that we will continue to support that video catalog or library online for as long as possible until the arrangement we made with Civic Plus is that we can store all those video records on the cloud. So we'll have them until we run an issue, and if we run an issue, we'll obviously talk to council if it becomes a cost issue. There are videos that other platforms that we use would no longer continue to be hosted. For example, Facebook has informed its users that after a certain period, all their videos are going to be deleted. And we understand why. Video takes up a lot of space, and Facebook has millions of users. That's a lot of data. In our meetings, as you know, we run a little on the longer side, so having a 2-3 hour video, it's a lot of data. So we don't control those platforms, but we'll maintain video for as long as that we have. So right now, the plan is everything going back to 2009 that is digitized, we'll continue to support that. Council is not under legal obligation to have that video online, but we do archive it and it's available.
Yeah, it makes sense. Councilmember Roberts.
But didn't it one time we made the videos as part of the official record of the meetings? I thought we,
So official records, based on our records retention policies, which are in alignment with the Maryland Archive standards, there are several public records that can be erased, deleted forever. And they're guided by our records retention policy. So what's in our records retention policy is that our meeting minutes are kept forever. Videos must be maintained until meeting minutes have been approved by council. So a video like tonight, we cannot delete it until council has adopted minutes for that meeting. Once minutes have been approved by council, the legal requirement for that video is no longer required.
I think we should keep the video record indefinitely.
Well, that's what
because-
Mr. Summerone just said we were
Yeah,
doing.
I know, and I appreciate that because the minutes often don't really reflect all that happened at a meeting.
No, they don't.
And so I think that the video record should be the minutes of the meeting because it reflects what actually happened at the meeting. No getting around it. So I think they should be held indefinitely.
Mayor Pro Tem, is your hand up?
Yeah, I just wanted to go back because I was looking at I had just pulled up the agenda on the website from the council meeting in July. Will we be, so right now, meetings, approving the meetings, the upcoming meetings list has been on the consent agenda, but has been listed down at the bottom. Is that one that we would also move up to the top? Because I just wonder if that, it would be a different order than what's in the standing rules. That may not, I think.
Do you want to talk to us?
I mean, we haven't always done meetings as on the consent agenda. I think my first term, we would talk about meetings at every council meeting and then vote on it. So it hasn't always been a consent agenda item, but we did do that, I think, for this term.
Yeah, so for some meetings, we do have it as a consent item. So it's up to the council if you want to continue to keep it as a consent item. But there's times we don't have it on consent, when, like, for instance,
If,
upcoming.
if there's been some reason to pull it
Yeah,
off.
like could this meeting that we have on Monday, August the 11th, we will be discussing moving a regular meeting to a Wednesday, the September 22nd. So there's going to be times it's going to be on consent or it's not going to be on consent.
Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think to have it on the consent as a consent item, and we'll frequently either pull it off by council or the city manager and staff may pull it off just because we have to make a change. Makes sense to me. So, are there some other thoughts about council operations that we need to touch on before we go to standing rule? We're going to administrative processes next.
The administrative processes, a lot of them are connected with, I think one, we have an extra.
We have an extra one.
They're related to some of the proposals made by Ms. McKinney about how we administratively handle applications, reappointments, and whatnot. So we welcome direction from council on the administrative aspects of supporting council's activities.
Okay,
Any
so
changes you wanna make there?
essentially, where it says, these two items, administrative processes and advisory boards and committee, were kind of taken at the same time?
I think they're separate items, but they are related. So I think in administrative processes, there are communications we often want to make, whether they are to an applicant or to any council business. I think that's an appropriate matter area to discuss. I think there are some communications that we make externally that are managed outside of council meetings via email and whatnot, and then there's others that we require everyone to weigh in on. For example, the council letter that will go in the budget book. We have a draft. We've shared that with the mayor and mayor pro tem to get some direction of where on messaging, and then we'll share a final draft with council once that worked through. Unless council wants to all weigh in at the same time on the letter that goes in the budget book.
I'd like to take a first crack at it with Mayor Pro Tem, then the rest of the council can comment.
Although it might make as much sense, since we have some time this evening, to pull it up and just take a look at it. I mean, it's basically similar from last year, right? And then just a
Correct.
few points changed.
Yes, we
Seems-
update factual information or activities that come up. Mhm.
I mean, it seems efficient to me to do that during a work session and just take a look at it, and then we can all kind of sign off on it all at once.
I suppose we can do it that. I don't like writing things in a work session, but let's pull it up. I know we had a discussion just on Monday about how we would go about framing some recommendations regarding the future outlook. You want to pull it up?
I can. Let me put it up to Jordan. I'm sure Mayor Pro Tem Weaver beat me to it.
Well, I was letting you do it. And I stopped searching for it because you started.
I saw you looking at me,
I know,
so
I
I'm
was
like,
pulling up my ears.
Oh,
One thing I think that you mentioned to me, there is the possibility, because I think there are some capabilities in Civic Press, some things for ability to like make notes and keep track of things. I think there are some opportunities for some online trainings and things that we can do as well that I think is worth mentioning, because that came up. Josue and I were talking about that earlier. Is that I haven't totally. There's like I think you can do notations and things and make notes through the Civic Plus platform, which might be useful for other council members. I'll have to decide if I switch from my current OneNote system to doing it in Civic Plus. We'll have to see.
Yeah, frankly, I think I'd rather, instead of trying to redraft this now, just can we post it and council can all look at it?
I'd like to at least throw it up there and see if anybody has any initial thoughts. I think it won't take very long.
I found the letter. We have it up. Make it bigger. Would you like me to read it or just display it?
Multiplying it is fine with me, but hopefully everybody can read it from there.
I'm making it bigger. I see Mr. Orleans up there on the screen. Is that better, Mr. Orleans?
So on Monday, we talked about putting two scenarios sort of to give people, in order to provide a more accurate picture of what may happen, putting down two scenarios. So
I think
don't know
that's
if
different, actually. That's for the financial,
police.
yeah, that's not this letter.
But I do think that we should probably reference that in this letter.
Yes, we can add that, and we have completed the two scenarios. We have the scenario that we submitted to council, that we discussed at Monday's meeting, and then we worked up a scenario with a lower step increase.
Right.
That, for the CBA, non-police officers. With the CBA,
Right.
we have a contractual obligation to offer that step. But with the non-CBA employees, we can adjust both the COLA and the step increase. So that's where we have room to adjust the budget. So we have a scenario in which that would lower our expenditures. So for the letter, the items that we want council's feedback is on the highlighted portions. Our work on crisis intervention work continues to get stronger. Now our team are not just our own internal experts on crisis intervention, but we are now training other police departments. So we become a leader amongst our peers, and we teaching others how the Greenbelt does police work. So we thought that was important to highlight that department, and we can even expand the language. We have the Vision Zero plan. We submitted our grant agreement to Department of Transportation. The two modifications we made to that grant agreement is the eliminating any references to equity. We did include some language regarding the policies that the federal government is looking for municipalities to enforce, primarily around immigration enforcement. So we put some language in there that we would not our application would not be held up independent of the outcome from the state suing the White House on immigration enforcement. So there's an active lawsuit going on with the state. So we're putting some legalese language. It's very vague, but the idea is that we do not want to be held responsible for anything that we do not have control over, that it doesn't fall within our jurisdiction. I anticipate that we'll see more of these requirements from federal contracts for HUD and other projects. Our HUD grant for 2026 has already been approved, so that language we didn't have to worry about that language. But we don't know what it means for next fiscal year. But I think that's going to be an important area of work for us for two reasons. We've had traffic incidents that led to fatalities, and many of grant programs for transportation improvements required the adoption implementation of a Vision Zero plan. So
Right.
This is the first step to securing additional federal grant dollars. Now, the federal grant dollar landscape for transportation project has changed, but I think that we need to stick to what has been a normal course of business for municipalities seeking transportation dollars. I know Mayor Pro Tem Weaver sits on the Transportation Committee, and Vision Zero plans are a key component of planning and development in cities. We've got the 10-year labor projection for the Greenbelt Police Department. What drove this was the prospects of more housing units coming into the city, primarily the Beltway Plaza development. Obviously, that program that development project has had some challenges, some fundraising challenges, but we're still going to continue with the 5-10-year labor projection plan for the police department. Currently, we're almost fully. We've been over the last 2 years. We've been mostly fully staffed. We've had some some transition. Some of it has, most of it has just been outside of our control. We've had officers be recruited by National Security Administration. That's difficult to compete with. And we're excited for those folks that have career aspirations that we can provide. We have the expanding electric vehicle infrastructure. I think that this would be an important one to highlight because the federal policy is moving away from EV infrastructure, but we've made a strong commitment for EV stations. I know that we've struggled to get them off the ground, particularly the community, the EV infrastructure, EV charging stations at the community center, but we're making forward movement on them. Just today, I received an updated design plan that the Pepco engineer wants more specification on whether a line is going to be bored or dug up and then enclosed with concrete. And the footnote says it's going to be enclosed in concrete, but we need to spell it out in the diagram. So
That's gonna take a lot of work.
yes. The searching for additional tax income opportunities, we've had some conversation around the public utilities taxes. We have a different rate than our surrounding communities. So it would be good for all of us to be at the same rate, and that would help bring additional income,
I think
revenue.
There's a way we can make that a little bit broader, just looking for revenue instead of just simply tax and expense reductions, something to that effect.
Yeah, I was going to suggest something similar. I think that makes sense that it's not the other revenues, but because I think that's a good place to sort of tie into the projections that we were talking about on Monday.
Okay, so we are changing tax income opportunities to revenue opportunities.
Yeah, and something about potential expense reductions, savings.
I think the other thing that I noted related to the 5 to 10 year projection for the police department, because that is thinking about Beltway Plaza as well. There is also the recreation space that we are being offered in that as they progress with that project. And so there may also be rec department implications in terms of being able to provide services through that space in Beltway Plaza. So that maybe should be part of that labor projection, especially related to Beltway Plaza.
Mm-hmm.
Like what staffing would we need? Because I think it's almost 30,000 square feet that they were offering us.
By contract, the agreement is
Yeah, the contract.
27,000 square feet, and it includes improvements to the space and installing 4 indoor fields.
Right.
And there isn't a price tag associated
Right.
with that. We can include that part. The concern I will have that we may be suggesting that the development will be happening within 1 to 3 years on a more short-term basis. And I doubt that that Beltway Plaza would construct that second
No,
building.
yeah. I was thinking in
Yeah.
this 5 to 10 year range
Yeah.
that you related to there. Yeah.
Mhm. We can do that. We can, at minimum, we can put the language that should this development at Beltway Plaza get built, that we would need to bring on additional officers, additional recreational staff to support the activities there.
Right. Of course, in the past, we had the agreement with Quantum and Beltway Plaza for police officer, and they still have an office there. I
A
guess it's
substation.
been substation.
Yes, and
We still have the agreement, or no, it lapsed.
so there's two relationship, and we still provide support to Beltway Plaza. The more consistent relationship was with Franklin Park. We get paid for that community action officer,
right.
and you heard from Officer Alvarez, who
Alvarez,
serves in that capacity there.
Okay, so maybe it would just be expanding that relationship somehow. If they, well,
It would be a separate development project, and those officers would act more as just your patrol officers for a residential community. It would just be in a multifamily setting, but it would be unlike what with Beltway Plaza now, where our officers are empowered to enforce laws on inside the mall and around the
There
mall.
would be no inside the mall.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. And the next item, I would love. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Roberts. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to go back a little bit. Are we being compensated for training that we provide other cities or agencies?
Mhm.
Or is that something that we do for gratis?
Yeah, I'll get into the details. They are with our partners, and we exchange trainings. So there's times where we go to other agencies for training, and they come to us for training. So an example, the city was able to secure the FBI communications trainings a couple months ago. We convened them. It did not cost us anything. The FBI, it was through a grant application that we apply for that. So we hosted that, we get the free training, and we invite others to come to the training, and others paid for the refreshments and a few materials there. So it's the collaboration. So, but I would check specifically if we got paid for that event, but we do partner with agencies and share training opportunities with each other because we can't do all of our own trainings. We provide training ourselves, and then we utilize training being offered by other agencies.
Okay, thank you.
So that bullet, revisiting the circulator idea, I'd love for us to do that. We haven't really talked about that very much. So I'd love to see that conversation and some action steps move forward. But I think more importantly, I'd like to see a sentence in there about the steps that we're taking to protect the economic health or resilience or whatever you want to call it for our residents and business community in these difficult times. I'm trying to think how I would say that, but I think that's an important thought, and we have made some headway just in terms of building better relationships with businesses. And certainly, we're thinking proactively about what lies ahead and what we may need to do, what we can do to help our residents make it through these challenging times.
Yes, I think in terms of wording it, what we will be faced with is a rebalancing of our local economy. We'll be shifting. We're losing jobs.
Yeah.
We're losing jobs and losing industry, and
Yes.
so we've got to figure out how to fill that void. So in terms of wording, obviously we're talking about how do we build a more resilient local economy, and how do we have economic growth. And smart economic growth. Some of it is just we need to build some of the industries. Many communities, I don't know that the following example won't necessarily work in Greenbelt, but there are communities that wanted to stir industry, and communities invested in business parks. So they opened up business park incubator space to create the space, and the idea is you build it and they will come. Greenbelt is in a unique position where we have a ton of space. We have a ton of space, and it isn't about building more space to bring in more business. It's how do we reposition our vacant space to attract different industry. We'll have commercial office space that just in the post-COVID environment where remote work is just the standard or is a significant portion of a workforce in any company, a lot of that office space is not going to get backfilled. So how do we reposition this commercial office space? Do we think of it as redevelopment opportunity for residential housing? DC is trying that with some of those those buildings downtown, reposition those buildings for housing. Is that something that we want to pursue to reposition these office buildings for that, or can they be repositioned for other purposes?
Yeah, and certainly looking at retail space and in our commercial sector, particularly at the two shopping malls, there's some space there. So my inclination would be to reference that perhaps instead of the bullet about revisiting the circulator idea, which is an idea that I love, and I would love to actually make some progress on that.
Yeah. The reason why this item's up on here is we have had the roundtables, the hospitality, the sector roundtables.
Yep.
And actually exists on paper that most of these hotels had shuttles.
Shuttles, yeah.
And they went away. There wasn't an enforcement mechanism to require that they bring back those shuttles.
Mhm.
But they all need a form of a shuttle. They just can't afford an individual shuttle for each hotel. So in one of the conversations we had with the hotels were, well, they could pitch in, but somebody would need to take ownership of building out a circulator model that would serve all those hotels.
Great opportunity for a public-private partnership.
Right, correct. And we have, I wouldn't say our service is shuttle, because our service is door-to-door shuttle, right? We pick people up where they are and we take them to where they're going. We don't necessarily run a route. So that's where that idea come from. I would work on the economic development piece and tie it in with our economic development plan, because there are some goals that are part of that plan that we would be executing. And we already executing some of those goals. For example, we just re-engaged with Experience Prince George's County as to draft up a ad for our hotels for the upcoming fall winter visitors guide that we want to get out. So we've done that for some time. We feel that it's working. I spoke with the manager of the hotel that's under renovations,
Holiday Inn,
Holiday Inn. There are 200 rooms.
yes.
Of the 200 rooms, 120 are being renovated, the Candlewood rooms. So there's only 80 rooms, and she's sold out all the time. Like, she's just sold out, which is good for her to sell out what units are available
She
for
needs
rent.
more rooms.
But there's 120 rooms still under construction. So she obviously is ready for the entire hotel to be open. But our outreach to the hotel has worked. I spoke with Mike at Crown Plaza. They're doing good business. Obviously, there's always more to do because they've got event space there, and the event space is not at capacity.
Right.
But if they do well, we'll do well.
I was talking to the manager of the Hilton Garden Inn this morning. She was saying that they are renovating their conference space, and soon in the fall will have the capacity for 300 people there.
Oh,
Which is
excellent.
good news.
Excellent. This morning, we had the Greenbelt Business Alliance roundtable.
Right.
So the key presentation this morning was talking about how businesses could do well by doing good. So one of the models was the Roundup program and how well the Roundup program is working for the Co-op grocery store. This month's recipient for the Roundup program is the Labor Day Festival Committee.
great,
So
yeah.
that's going well. Previous one was the Emergency Assistance Fund for the city.
Right.
And last month was the space. So it's a good way for people to donate to local causes.
That is great. What else do we need to look at in this letter?
That's the end of the letter. You got the signature blocks.
But if you'll update it and
Mhm.
circulate it around, we can get that going as soon as possible.
Okay, excellent. We'll do.
We've got a question from the public. Mr. Orleans, you had a question?
This letter was discussed at Monday's meeting, so 2 days ago. So it's not being discussed further.
No.
It was a very brief discussion, and I think the essence of that discussion was that I had shared the letter with Mayor and Mayor Pro Tem Weaver and highlighted the pending items to finalize our budget book. And there's two items that we need to finalize in order to publish the budget book. And that is this letter, the letter from council to our residents. And the second one is the 5-year projection as requested by the GFOA. Mhm. Mhm.
long before what's now called Greenbelt Station was developed, there was a suggestion then that Greenbelt needed to broaden its economic base, and where we had plenty of office space and plenty of retail space, we had no light industrial space. And that space where now Greenbelt Station sits was directly across the track from industrial uses in College Park and also relatively close to what's now Berlin Heights. That is an ideal space for a modern industrial park in Greenbelt, where tenants further north in the, I'm sure, significantly brownfields of Sunnyside Avenue and Powder Mill Road could have a place to be locate to in a modern, clean industrial. It was suggested then by a member of council that we didn't want any warehouses in Greenbelt. That's an example. If we're going to talk about economic development, we must have a broader understanding of what's in our interest. Lastly, since this won't be discussed tonight, as we're moving forward, we're talking about how our retail and office space would be repurposed, I think is the phrase was. We ought to have a larger public discussion of how various property owners, now exclusively office or now exclusively retail, could benefit from, and this has been done elsewhere, done as recently as 6 or 8 years ago in Montgomery County, where owners of separate parcels of property, different neighborhoods could benefit by shared interest in the redevelopment, where it's mixed use, in addition to office, in addition to retail, with housing, where they could actually do more profit than now they could make, maintaining their uses.
Thank you, thank you.
Uses of their property.
Thank you very much. Okay, let's keep it moving. I guess we'll shift, and we'll be looking for that draft in the next couple of days, or whatever it was. Of the letter.
We'll get it to you this week.
Thank you, thank you. Okay, let's skip to advisory boards and committees. Councilmember McKinney, you prepared quite a bit of material with recommendations based on our previous meeting in July. Was it June or July?
The meeting with the advisory boards was June.
Uh-huh, so I had it right. So, I'd like to turn the chair over to you, or maybe not quite that, but why don't you
I
go
was like,
ahead?
really? No.
We're handing the gavel down.
I know. Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, so following up with the meeting that we had with the advisory board chairs and committee chairs back in June, I think it was a really productive conversation that we had with them, and I think there was a lot of great feedback gathered from all that attended around, how can we all work together to ensure that all of our boards and committees are working as effectively as possible to support the city and the residents, as well as supporting the council. And so what I put together was really a summary of that conversation, as well as highlighting a few items that came up where the chairs felt as though they needed some greater clarity and some greater guidance. So what you see are things around their eligibility in terms of service for committee members and board members. We had a lively discussion about attendance and what we might be able to do to better support the tracking and the recording of attendance. And then there was also a discussion around the application process and how do we ensure that we are communicating with applicants effectively, both pre, during, and post the application process. So the information that I put in the packet, I tried to outline as best possible what I thought were the current processes that we have in place for some of these items, and then a set of recommendations on how we might be able to update and just create greater clarity. So not necessarily to change, but to really address some of the things that, again, we heard from the chairs where it would help them to effectively run their meetings. So my hope is that in our conversation today, we could take a look at the recommendations and discuss them as a council, see where there may be some additional recommendations that people might have, and then try to codify this into our overall process with our advisory boards, and then hopefully put that into effect with them.
Okay. Well, I think what we'll need to do is to kind of work through each section. Perhaps there's a council member that's not read through these materials, so we'll just kind of move through them.
Of course.
We could start off with eligibility terms and terms of service. And there are 3 recommendations. 1, members should submit a new statement of intent when their term is up. So with the reapplication process, instead of just checking a box, they would need to fill out a new statement. Also, the board or the committee chairs should be consulted prior to a reappointment before that's added to the consent agenda. Just summarizing here. And council would notify the individuals who may not be appointed for the committee or during the term that they interviewed for. Is that a pretty accurate summary?
That's correct. So just a little bit more color commentary on the first item related to if a term is up. Right now, our current process is, in essence, the city clerk sends out a notification to that member, asks whether or not they want to continue, and it's mainly just a yes or no, and it gets put on the consent agenda. I think there are times when life changes, things change, and there may be also things that have happened during their term of service that a chair can also weigh in on, if the scope of the committee has shifted, and we're looking for some ideas there. So I think instead of it simply just being an automatic, it may be helpful for both the board and the committee as a whole, as well as that member, just to ensure that they're committed to moving into that next term.
Mayor Pro Tem,
Yeah, and I think there is a form
there is.
that they have to fill out that asks them some things, like a few things about, are you interested in serving, or like, I forget what exact questions. I was trying to find an example of one of them, but I think, I'm not sure that I think that could maybe be revised to get a little bit more information
great.
about, because I think it asks like things they liked about the committee. I'm trying to remember what's on those.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Great.
that's correct. There's a paragraph, and individuals tend to write in something, and it just sticks in my mind that that's usually in handwriting as opposed to being online.
And then what
So-
happens when that's submitted? Do we see that, or does that mainly go to the clerk?
It's part of the,
We do
it's part
see
of the
it, yeah.
consent agenda when they are reappointed, but I don't think council generally sees that before that point. So
Correct.
it's in the packets when that person is being, just like I think the code of conduct for them when they're appointed, this form is part of it. It's sort of buried because it's always right at the, all, way,
Mhm.
way at the end usually. But I also think sometimes, I think one of the challenges I've noticed both for the reappointments and also sometimes for people applying is sometimes they don't fill in a lot of information. So there's not, you can get that in the conversation with them when they come to the board meetings, but there's not necessarily always a lot of, they have not all, some people provide a great deal of information. Some people don't necessarily really give us a lot to work from in terms of reviewing an application.
Yeah, and I would say, thank you for pointing that out, because I think even with the initial application process, there are fields in the form that are not required. And so there are a lot, even though we ask the question, they may not actually respond to the question. So that we're then having limited information until they come into the actual interview. And it may be helpful to have some of that initial information before the actual interview occurs.
I think what may happen sometimes is individuals will sign up to serve on an advisory board, and they're passionate about doing something and volunteering, but they haven't given a lot of thought or don't really have a framework, particularly if they've not
Right.
attended one of the meetings. So they may have signed up for 3 or 4 things, and if you were to ask them to be more specific about a particular advisory board, they'd have to. They just don't know what to put in because they don't know what they don't know.
Sure.
But there is a follow-up for the reappointment, I'm sure, and people use that, it's a yes or no, but then there's a box where they can put in comments.
I think that's this
And
one
it's
here.
sort of good, an exit interview, because we do want to know if there's some particular issue or if there's something good. That's a pretty good list. As you said, Mayor Pro Tem, a lot of people just don't fill it out. Some people don't.
They'll put like 1 or 2 words. It's just not, so it's
So I
just
guess-
not a lot of information.
So maybe, I mean, all of these maybe don't need to be required, but maybe there are a certain few of these questions that in the form we do ask as required that they respond to. And then we note the ones that are required and then maybe the ones that are optional if they want to add more color to that.
Right. Yeah, that's actually a pretty good exit interview, the set of questions, more so than the initial application. Yes, please, Councilmember Niesel.
First, I want to thank Danielle, Councilmember McKinney, so much for putting this together. I think it's definitely past time that we review this process. I especially love the statement of intent, because oftentimes and the fact that we're asking them to go to a meeting first, because oftentimes we get to the interview and there doesn't even really seem to be much to talk about because there's so much unknown. So I really love that. As far as the reappointment form, I think that, all right, I know that people are often feel overwhelmed by open-ended questions. And so if we just reformatted that so that whichever ones were yes or no were literally just a checkbox, I think we would probably get more answers. And then also when you're looking to get people's feedback on surveys, it's really important to keep it as brief as possible. So I would recommend no more than 3 questions that they're actually responding to in an open-ended format, and then the rest be yes or no checkboxes.
Let's see, yes or no or multiple choice?
Well, it looked from what I could see that most of them were yes or no.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wearing my bad glasses. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't have my contact lenses, so I can't see that.
Yeah, I think some of them, like, do you feel the board, I mean, I think there's a few that are sort of a little bit mixed, but maybe we focus on the ones that we find most helpful among this list. I think obviously the first one is yes or no, but I'm not sure asking why is necessarily going to elicit the best response. I think there could be ways to think about, what have been, some of your favorite things or your best experience on the committee. What's one area of improvement? Like, make them a little bit. I just feel like, have you found your participation rewarding? That's not necessarily inviting people to necessarily share as much about it, but saying what was one of the best things you experienced on this committee? Or I think there's some ways we could pare down the questions and make them a little bit more inviting or a little bit more enticing to answer.
Yeah, like with number one, do you wish to continue your employment? If it no, that's like yes or no. But if yes, then can you please say why or what you would like to accomplish? Is that what you were driving
Or
at?
yeah, most of the committees and boards are working on projects and initiatives all the time. So it could be something like, what is, one issue that you are deeply committed to working on that you would like to see through, or something like that, or
What would you like to accomplish?
yeah, something like that. I think, and then to Councilmember Niesel's suggestion, simply make the first, do you wish to continue? Because we need to know that. Make that a
Yes,
yes or
that's
no.
important.
That's a
Check
yes or no.
box. And I do think it's interesting. Do you wish to serve on a different board or committee? That could also be yes or no.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
If so, which one?
yeah.
But then I think those like 3 through 6
Yeah.
could be maybe reworded to be just a little bit more likely that we'll get some more deep thought in response.
I also wonder, what are we trying to get out of this? Because I think that's an important question. If we're asking someone to answer all of these questions thoughtfully, are we actually doing anything with this information?
I think they will better inform council as we're doing the interview with the individual or looking this over, deciding whether or not to approve a reappointment. So, and your recommendation, council member, is that before reappointment is made, council would deliberate and make a recommendation.
Yes, and I think it would also be helpful to consult with the board, committee, and chair before we make that reappointment. Obviously, they will have additional information that would probably be beneficial in making that. It is still the council's final decision on whether or not that appointment is made or reappointment is made. But I do think having that consultation would be helpful. So I think it's a two-step process. So consultation from the chair, and then we deliberate, and then it goes on the actual consent agenda.
Yeah, Mayor Pro Tem.
Well, and I think then also to Ms. Niesel's point, if we make more of a point to collect these responses and do something with them, so that if there are, because there may have been, I do usually read through these, but I confess you see them, one at a time, over the time. I'm not sure we're necessarily using the information, even for those who are no longer wish to serve on the committee. I mean, I think often it's personal reasons, like they've moved away or they don't have time or things like that. But there could be some valuable things that because we see them sort of one at a time rather than all together, we're not necessarily using the information as best as we could.
One, Ms. Council Member, please.
I was going to say, if we turned it into an online form, then it could all get stored.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't have
We
to
have a
worry
whole
about
new website that can do all sorts of good things, right, Ms. Anderson?
Well, I have mixed thoughts about that. Just looking at the individuals that come and interview. We talked about doing most of these as virtual interviews, and I get the impression that many of the individuals would almost prefer being here in person. And likewise, I sort of feel like some people would prefer, I know that there are some people that would prefer to just write something out as opposed to doing an online form.
There will
Not to
be
say that's
some. I don't think
challenging,
it's going to be a
there's
huge
some,
number,
yeah.
but I think that there may be some.
So I think we would need to have both still, but certainly an online form would be a nice addition for other people, just making it a little bit quicker to reply and to share thoughts and comments. So.
And then I guess the last point in this section is, I think we often, we have the interviews and we want to make sure that we're following up. Like, I don't know what the timeline is for us as a council to make a decision on when we actually appoint somebody And then what is then the timeline to notify that person after they have interviewed? So if you look at some of our documentation, we have people that interviewed almost a year ago. And I don't know if they've heard anything or what that follow-up process is to say, thank you for your interest. We will continue to hold your letter of intent, your application on. If there's no availability, we will let you know. I don't know what that process is for notifying people.
Yeah, I think that does sort of circle back to the notification process. Some of the applicants who come in have applied for 2 or 3 different committees, and maybe they didn't get selected for the one their first choice, or maybe often people will check a box and there's no opening.
Right.
So their name may be on the list they interviewed a while back, but the opportunity that they interviewed for wasn't there. So
Completely understand. I just want to make sure we're closing the loop and we're just not having people sitting out there thinking, hey, what happened? I feel like we actually ran into that recently. That there was an application that went out and it was like, oh, I didn't hear anything.
right, so some
So-
sort of in the
Yeah.
letter notifying someone that a
Mhm.
selection has been made, and unfortunately it was not you. There should be a checkbox. Are you still interested in serving on?
Right. Or
X,
on this other
Y?
committee, or would you rather us hold on to your application for when a new opening does occur?
Yeah.
Give them that option to kind of close that out.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Well, I think part of the challenge with that is because as we've noted, people will come to interview with us before they've actually visited the advisory boards that they are interested in. So we can't necessarily make a decision at that point because they haven't fulfilled all the requirements.
That's right.
So I think that's part of the process of maybe spelling that out more clearly on the website of what the process is to be an appointment, and that question I think that Ms. McKinney suggested of part of the application process being I have been to these committees, and then if it sort of stops you and says, if you haven't attended one of these meetings, go do that first.
Right.
Here's the information for how to attend, because that means that we can make the decisions more quickly, because they will have already met the requirements to say, is there an opening? Okay, do we think this person is a good fit? Yes or no. We need to tell them, no, sorry, there's not an opening, or say, no, but if you want this committee instead, or, at this time, no, thank you. Thank you for submitting, but, I just think that one key change could be a pretty important difference. And I also, was thinking to your desire for people to do in-person things, I think another option and something that's not really addressed here is sort of like recruitment and what council role and other role is in trying to get people onto the committee. Because I know the person we interviewed just before this meeting was one that Ms. Niesel had spoken to in an event and encouraged her to apply. How can we do more of that? I think if we do a tent like we did at a booth at the Labor Day Festival, I feel like we got a few people at that last year. But I think also that one possibility is to once a year, maybe every 6 months, do something that is focused on recruiting for advisory boards and have it be a meet and greet about advisory boards specifically, and try to get people, or maybe you don't try to bring people here, but we just make a point of that at other events. I just think that's part of it, because then you can have some of those initial conversations and say, oh, I think you'd be really great for ACE. Here's when the meeting is. You should go do that. And then they go the next process. But I think we need to be a little bit more proactive about talking to people, having events that maybe encourage them to apply for advisory boards, rather than just what it has been, which has been some individual efforts, but a lot of it is just information on the website or vacancies in the news review. And that clearly is not effective, because we have a lot of vacancies on a lot of boards. I mean, some are full, some are very popular, but we also have a lot of vacancies on a lot of boards.
Right, right. Well, I think that individual council members talk to people about the advisory boards. I certainly do.
I'm talking about
So-
something more collective, though.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
thought we actually talked about this before, and the idea of doing a meet and greet for the advisory boards was something that we kind of agreed to do. In my recollection, I think it'd be a great idea. Another example is, we have the we've got Labor Day Festival coming up, and there's Information Day on Saturday, and I guess that's where we had a booth last year.
Yeah, I think that was
Yeah,
Ms.
are we doing
McKinney and
that?
Ms. Pompey prompted that, and I believe they've already taken care of it. So,
Yeah, we signed up
Yep.
for a booth.
Cool.
So one other suggestion, looking at the website, is that maybe there can be a section that is just application process. Because right now it's kind of embedded. We say the purpose, we talk about eligibility, and then we go right to appointment and attendance. We don't say this is the process. So we have an application form. But to what Mayor Pro Tem was saying, maybe just calling out, this is the application process. You submit a form, you need to attend a meeting, and then you'll have, like, it's just 3 bullet points, I think would be helpful for people.
Right, right.
Would you like to make that as an eligibility requirement or?
It could be nestled under that too.
That makes sense to me. It
yeah, I
is.
think somewhere, I think just, because it doesn't even here actually say anywhere the requirements that you have to attend a meeting first.
Correct.
Yeah.
I don't think, has that been a requirement?
No, but that's a practice of council.
Practice of
Yeah.
council.
So I think we should very much specify that. Because then that also gives a totally different conversation when we're interviewing them. And that also gives the council chair, or excuse me, the chairs of each committee an opportunity to interact with that person as well and be able to provide feedback.
So, yeah, and the idea with seeking the feedback from the chair of the committee, for me, it's important to get input. At the same time, it is council's prerogative, and sometimes council will make appointments thinking about new initiatives or getting a better balance on an advisory board. We see how some of the boards have worked in the past, and sometimes council has taken actions to try and rebalance an advisory board. So I think the way it's phrased, it should be input, and trying not to imply that the decision somehow is going to rest with the board chair. And I know my colleague, Mr. Roberts, has pointed out that it shouldn't just be the chair, it needs to be the whole advisory committee, but ultimately it comes back to council.
Right now, it simply says consulted.
Mhm.
So I think that hopefully infers input and that we ultimately make the final decision. Okay.
So as we're working through these excellent points and refinements, perhaps we're thinking just in terms of next steps that based on this discussion, this would come back to council at a council meeting in September sometime?
I don't know if do we need to?
There are some items that I'm hearing that are actionable now. For example, the application being a form and having both a paper and a form option.
Right.
That's something that
easy to
we
do.
take care of
Right now.
administratively. The adding to the website clarity on I wrote it myself as prior attendance in an advisory board is highly recommended. So you don't make it an outright requirement, but I think I strongly suggest that they should attend a meeting. And I think we can even expand to that, encourage folks to look at the meeting times of the advisory committee. And they're listed on the same page already, but just directing folks to look at when the meetings are happening. So so I've heard a few things tonight that are actionable. Some of it is just simple rewarding, and adding check boxes to question one. There's some that are yes or no.
Yes
so,
or no, and if
yeah.
no, which committee would you like?
Right. The why expanding the first question to why is what would you have liked to have accomplished, or what would you like to accomplish in the upcoming term? Triggers a more specific response.
Yep.
I think those are the ones I've jotted down that are tangible, actionable on our end. If the questions need to be radically redesigned, I think that's probably needs to come back to council, but I'm not hearing that right now from the form that we just reviewed.
I think rewording some of the either both the application and the reappointment application to make it, because I think some of this too, like if you look at the actual application, it's, you know, other areas of interest, education, professional background, civic experience. I think we could use some of the suggested questions and get a little bit more at why do you want to serve on this committee? Like that's kind of, I mean, I think having some of this background information a little bit is useful, but I think why do you want to serve on this committee, and make sure they've thought about that before.
Because sometimes they don't answer the questions, and
Yeah.
it's like they're coming in and we don't know anything about their experience or why they're there, and it is helpful to sort of know that in advance, because that can help shape the way that the questions that we ask them.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's very frustrating for the council members that participate in the interviews.
And further on the last page, I had included a few application form suggestions. One was describe relevant experience and background that you bring to the board and committee's work. Please provide dates of board committee meetings that you attended. Why would you like to be considered to serve on this board? And how do you think board and committee can best serve the city and the residents in the future? So just a few suggestions. Maybe that will give us some more detail.
And
Those are great.
does it, just thinking about updating the, I closed that, I shouldn't have closed that. Does it actually specify, also, I think part of the process, again, on the form, I think it says you need to fill out the code of conduct, but I don't know if that was as clear on the website as it could have been either. Just like the steps required. Let me pull that back up.
You know, one thing that
Yeah, it doesn't actually specify that, I don't think.
one thing that I occasionally intend to bring up in these interviews is just in terms of the time commitment. I think that if someone comes and interviews for a committee, it needs to be clear that we're looking for a commitment of at least a year. I don't think that's unreasonable.
And with that being said, I agree with you, Mr. Mayor. I had also put in some suggestions for the reappointment form to go with that attendance. So when we're asking, going back to Councilmember Niesel, what are we trying to get out of the form? I also think it provides the participant an opportunity, if there were any lapses in their attendance, in their participation, to discuss that. We know that people have family commitments, health concerns, and they still are very committed to being a part of that committee. And maybe it's just being able to state that and say those things that, yep, this happened in this past year, but I'm still very committed and this is what it looks like moving forward. So that I can make that commitment because they're supposed to be signing on for at least a year. So that was one of the suggestions that I made for the reappointment. And then, what is their interest in continuing to serve? And then I thought it might be interesting if there were any new skills, knowledge, and experience that they might have gained over their term that might be beneficial in the future. I think there are people who these are the ears of the community, so they're learning new things. They're going in participating in different events, and so that's also something that they might want to bring back to the committee or the board that they're serving on.
Yeah, I suppose along those same lines, you could ask a question about, is there any training or resources that you need or that would be helpful as you carry out your responsibilities?
Yeah.
See, and ultimately, our city clerk is going to have to carry out most of these processes and modifications. So we should definitely let her take a look at what we're putting together, and if she has some input to provide along with the city manager and city administration, kind of pull this together. Don't want to get too far ahead or away from that. Mayor Pro Tem.
So I think we sort of skipped ahead past the attendance, but I think that's something we definitely need to go back and revisit because that was something we very clearly heard from the committee chairs. And I think because the minutes of each committee are going to show who was there. But there's not particularly a centralized location for that to be stored. And so I don't know if that's something that, I mean, it could be just a spreadsheet on SharePoint with a tab for each committee and the members' names and the meeting dates. And then if that's something that might be possible for the staff liaison just after each meeting to, as part of that process, it shouldn't take them more than, a minute or two to put in who was here and who was absent. And then we'll have a centralized location where that information is stored for when we're looking at a reappointment, just to see, have there been any concerns? Or when we've had requests for people removed because they haven't attended the meetings. It's just, oh, you can quick look, oh, yep, they missed because the code of conduct specifies that, but it's, we don't have a centralized place to track that. So that might also be something that would be a relatively simple administrative piece to put in place. And shouldn't take a lot of time on anybody's part to just, put X's for who has attended the meeting.
Yeah, I actually think I already put one together,
Yeah.
a spreadsheet, but I think giving each chair an opportunity to say, this is what we want to make sure it is useful. Everybody has their own system, right? But I think inevitably we need one collection place for that. So if they use it or if they send us their attendance form and it gets then put into the Excel sheet, I think that is helpful.
And I was thinking staff liaison just because they would have access to the city IT.
Let me just say, so if we were to do something like that, it would be important to include a check off if the absence is excused. Because circumstances come up with health or travel, and each of these boards and committees is different. So the way that they conduct their business is a little bit different. Just in some, the most formal, if they're taking votes, and the quorum is very, very important. That's one thing. But somehow allowing for excused absences, I guess, is something we would have to, the liaison would have to make a note of. Yes.
I think the important piece is that we just need to be able to track it as questions do come up, especially when it comes to reappointment time. If there's any questions there.
Mm-hmm.
And then if just in the spirit of time, the other things that I put in here around the application process and reappointment was probably more of just kind of going more detailed into, are these the steps that are actually taken? Because again, I don't know if we have like an SOP or a standard that actually says step 1 is this, step 2 is this, step 3 is this. And so I would look to our city clerk to just let us know if that is the process or not. And so if that works, great. But I think one of the things that I wanted to point out was, especially in the reappointment process or the notification, having a timeline in which to notify people. So they're just not waiting one way or the other.
And we don't have those standard operating procedures in place. So I think that we need to put it together. And oftentimes we work at the direction of council. When we get a cue or asked to send a letter or follow up with someone, we do so. I know from the Charter Review Committee, I believe 2 months ago, whenever we had the last conversation about that, we sent everyone a letter saying, this is where we are in the process and whatnot. But that was 2 months ago, right?
Yeah.
So those folks will probably want to hear something again. And, they're not the only ones waiting to hear on council's appointment to something.
Right.
So we could make it a practice where either every 30 days or 60 days, we're just sending a letter of communication, say, hey, we haven't forgotten about you. We're-
Right.
Right, and if we could do that by email, that would be a lot easier than generating a letter. But once again, we have to be sensitive to the individuals that may not be on email.
Correct, but I think the majority of them will be on email. What I've seen is the majority of them will be on email.
Yeah, so if they have one, it would go out that way, and if not, we would send out a letter. or
Right,
something.
correct, yeah. Yeah, we could, I don't think the snail mail communication is gonna be the majority of it.
Right.
Do you have a preference for 30, 60, 90 days?
I think 60 days.
60 days, okay. And they're just mindful that some folks may be years before they come up for an opportunity to join a committee.
The specific one that they might be
Correct,
most
correct,
passionate
yes.
about. And so in that letter, maybe there's a box or something, say, is there some other committee that you would be more interested in? Or with the letters that go out, when we make an appointment on the consent agenda, then the other individuals who are in that list, who have already interviewed, we could tell them that we made an appointment.
And it might be
Mm.
worth also, I mean, asking people if they are interested in staying on the list. Because I know we've had you check, Ms. Anderson, we've had you check with people, are you still interested? And, if we check with people and say, hey, if you're not interested, then you can take them off the notification list if they've changed their mind or if they want to be on to consider a different committee.
And as a check and as a checking, making sure that, we're staying on task with it. At the current pace, council is doing interviews once a month. So at every month, you get an opportunity to see all the applicants and waiting if there's any particular candidate that you want to have a follow-up on or further discussion. I think our current schedule allows that once a month, council could have a check-in on where they are on these appointments.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, going back to what Mayor Pro Tem was saying around the attendance, I'm just looking at the website. It actually isn't very clear on attendance. It just says excessive. What does that, but there are things in our rules that actually go to that they should be attending, they shouldn't miss more than a certain amount of
It's in the
meetings.
code of conduct,
Yeah.
but I'm not sure actually that the code of conduct is linked on this page. I think that's usually sent directly to applicants. So I think that would be
We should add that as.
I think a link to the code of conduct, but maybe also calling, because I'm pretty sure that it is
I think it's
three in a,
Yeah.
there is something in the code of conduct that they signed, but I think it's not necessarily called out as clearly as it could be here.
We could also ask people to fill that out before they come in for the interview.
State that in the form,
Yeah.
that they fill out. I wrote myself 2 notes to add a link to the form, the online form that they complete, that, because we already just put the statement there as part of the appointment, each member is required to download, read, and sign the following code of conduct. So we'll put a link to the code of conduct there and then add it to the board committees page.
Councilmember Pompey.
Is it 3 consecutive meetings? Is that what's in the code of conduct?
It says council may remove an advisory board or committee member who misses without being excused by the majority of the advisory board or committee 3 consecutive meetings or more than 25% of the regular meetings during any calendar year.
Okay.
That's the language in the code of conduct.
Okay, that's better, because I just wanted to make sure, like, if you're only attending every other meeting, that's not really enough either, right? So that's, okay.
Yeah,
thank
no,
you.
it does have a specification for, or more than 25%
And
of
that
regular
seems like the
meetings.
right number to me, so, all right, thank you.
And it does specify there without being excused. So I think there is built in there some leeway if there is a reason why somebody is not able to attend but is still interested in serving. And I think so we have some flexibility to accommodate that if somebody's ill and
Yeah.
misses 3 in a row.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
there's a member of ACE who like recently had a baby, so
Yeah.
we certainly don't expect her to.
Right.
I mean, the meetings for a few months, she's got other things going on, but we don't intend to kick her off because of that, like, it's, yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
very clear to us.
It's up to the committee to a large extent. Let's see. So we've talked quite a bit about this and made some great suggestions for the city manager and city clerk to consider. And I think it's going to be a step forward in incorporating some or all of these suggestions into the process. So when do you think we would be in a position to kind of review or take a look at what we come up with? Once again, would be September sometime?
We can have in September?
Of course,
Yep.
there's an election coming up, and that may take up a little time. The city clerk may be a little busy with that. But
Thank you, Ms.
September.
Anderson.
yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. I really appreciate it. We do have a question here. Sir, Mr. Orleans. Comment, excuse me.
It's really offensive.
Yeah, it's really,
Like,
yeah.
this is a work session.
On the form to a sitting board or committee member as to their reappointment. Why, the council should be asking itself and asking residents, why is it that there are so many vacancies on so many boards and committees?
There aren't that many.
There aren't that many.
There are not that many
There are
vacancies.
few on many, but not a lot on any.
Until very recently, there were many vacancies on, I was my understanding, many of the boards and committees. But if they're being filled, that's great. I know since interviews have been opened up to the public, which is only relatively recently, I've been to 3 interviews where some members were applying for appointments to these committees, and I greatly appreciate that. Nonetheless, council should be asking why there's not more involvement for more people on boards and committees. Council should be fighting off applicants to sit on boards and committees, rather than essentially seeing them at a social event and saying, why don't you apply? Not a bad thing to do, but that's not really appropriate. I'm returning
Well,
to the
thank you.
question, why is it that council is not doing more to, I've been asking the question for years, why do more to engage residents throughout Greenbelt with activities of Greenbelt, of official Greenbelt? Not just boards and committees, but other elements, attending city council meetings, running for election. There's been a suggestion made in Crab, which is not accepted over the course of some years. That Crab should be the board or committee that takes the initiative in going out with members of council to all parts of town and having a picnic and trying to involve parents with their kids. I can reach your kids, but trying to involve the parents throughout Greenbelt to be more involved in affairs of Greenbelt.
Your comments don't seem closely related to the work that we're trying to do here, sir.
What should be on the reappointment form, council should be spending some time asking that question.
Well, I think we did talk about that, but also another note, that microphone doesn't seem to be, it's registering on the captions, but it's not apparently audible to people online.
Can I
Right.
just make one comment? I
Yes,
think
please.
one of the things that we have heard as the reason to, one of the reasons, and there are several, one of the reasons why people don't participate in boards and committees or come to that is because they don't actually understand the process and they don't understand the commitment. So the reason that we're having the conversation today is to create greater transparency, is to create more information so that our residents do understand the expectations for what they are volunteering for and getting involved in. So it is a part of that, talking about process helps people to be informed, and that's what we're trying to do.
Well, thank you, thank you. So at this time, let's move on. You know, there were a couple of brief topics that I neglected to bring up, and I guess they should have fallen under council operations. And if council would indulge me just for a couple of minutes, there were some practices that we had that I wanted to bring up. One with our petitions and request list, I think that periodically council should actually review the petitions and requests to see where we are. I was looking through it the other day, and most of them seemed on point and seemed time bound, but there are some where other discussions by council or on other levels have actually been completed. So I think that periodically, not on a quarterly basis, with the city manager's review, I think that we should take out a little time to actually review the petitions and request list, maybe just once or twice a year. Along with that, there was a council action report that would track some of the requests, some of the many requests that we forward to staff. Such an active council and so many requests. And I'm wondering if there's a way that we can actually set up on SharePoint some kind of a spreadsheet so that we can log our different requests, particularly the ones that seem to be ongoing, so that they don't get lost in the shuffle. We used to actually keep that list, and I'm wondering if my colleagues would concur that having some sort of a tool where we can kind of log some of our requests might be helpful to staff, because everybody's human.
I would welcome that, because as it is right now, I get a text message, I get a call, I get stopped in the hallway. So.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea because individual council members do get requests from residents all the time to pass on, and it's a lot. Funneling those to Josue is a lot, and then he has to track every single one of them, or a member of his staff does. So I think having a list would probably be helpful to staff as well as to council, and that way council is also able to sort of keep track of, other requests that come in.
Just, I already set up a spreadsheet. So it's,
Bet you can. And the format for the petitions and requests is maybe a format that we could look at, because there's the request, and there's what stage it's at, and what the response and the status.
correct. So the spreadsheet that I set up is on our council SharePoint. It's listed as resident issues and concerns, and includes first name, last name, address, email, date submitted, received by whom, the topic, issue, or concern, referred to whom, the status, and the next steps.
That's good, but there are other types of requests, more administrative requests that may not come from just come from a council member. Hey, we need to pay attention. We need to answer that. So
I am happy if you all want to take what I've put together so far and then adjust it for those other types of issues and requests. We could probably put just a drop down in here that says type of request or something like that. Yep. And that's on our shared SharePoint.
Would you send me a link to that?
I will do that.
All right.
That's the one.
Or council action.
I mean, I think that we should still forward them around to all of council as we do.
Yeah.
Just so, we don't have to rely on checking that list to know what's going on. But if you're forwarding that request so that all of council can see, you also need to be the person responsible for putting that in the list. Like, I want to make sure that we're the ones entering things in the list and not sending it to Josue or Bonita to enter into the list. Like, we should enter it in so that then, they can follow up and track it.
Yeah, and I mean, there's some things that are really not minutia, but I mean, there's some things that just are a quick text message, but there are other things that are like that take more thought, more effort. Delegating something. Often issues come to the city manager, and he delegates them to a department head, and it gets delegated somewhere else. And just being able to track where a request is. So just trying to figure out a way to do that without creating an administrative burden. Mayor Pro Tem.
Well, and I think part of that is that sometimes we will have multiple residents making
Yes.
residents making the same request of multiple council members, and we don't necessarily know that they have asked, everybody else. I think that happened related to the setting up the BARC community meeting.
Yes.
That I think several of us got the same requests from the same people, and so keeping track of that. I think this is, I love spreadsheets, but I did have a conversation with someone from IndieGov at the National League of Cities.
Yeah, I
I
haven't
guess
had a chance.
it was a
there's
very
recording,
interesting.
I of that? I believe.
No, this was just a conversation that I
Right.
sat down with him. So,
Oh,
but
okay.
yeah, so I sat down with him. He was also talking to, at the same time, somebody from College Park, Georgia. But it's a
Okay.
system that it would be more complicated. I don't know what the cost structure is, but that actually to get to Mr. Orling's points about some of the ways of doing outreach in different ways, it has the capability of having maps, and you can actually do some like targeted engagement. One of the examples I was thinking of was when we've had questions from residents about for example, some of the protest marches that cause a disruption specifically to a very specific area, that there are ways in their system that, especially sort of perhaps in combination with some of these, like logging in for alerts, you could actually like put a little circle around Garden Way and say, hey, we've had a request for a First Amendment protest in this area. Be aware that there may be disruptions to your entry from this time to this time. You don't need to blast it out to everybody because it's not relevant to everybody, but the system allows you to be very targeted and focused, but also to do some of the broader things. I think it can also be used a lot for voter engagement, which I know that we're making an effort on. So again, it was clearly a sales pitch, but he had some interesting points. I think there's some features that I don't think we would be interested in, but it is a system that is used by a lot of different programs. I think, in fact, actually, like the House of Delegates may use it but the advantage of it is that you can pull it up on your phone. And so I think I recall Nicole Williams doing this at an event that the resident had reached out to her office, and she was able to pull up on her phone and say, oh yeah, this is how it was handled, or this is the status. And being able to do some of that tracking. And you can log also like in-person interactions too. So if somebody comes up to you at the Labor Day Festival and says, hey, there's a pothole here, you can do it. But then if that same resident then goes to Miss Pompey and says, hey, there's a pothole here, she can say, oh, Miss Weaver already logged it. That's been forwarded to Public Works. So again, that's more complex. There would be a cost to it. We'd have to look into it. A spreadsheet on our existing SharePoint doesn't have those issues, but it would have some capabilities that could be helpful in the long run.
Yeah, I saw a link to the presentation. I think there's a recording of the webinar on that. But you bring up an interesting point with these requests that come in quite often. Maybe it's a pothole or a sign that's no longer good. And you send it to Mr. Somerone, and he says, well, where is that? I know for Public Works, when there's a pipe break or something like that, being able to put a dot down and show exactly where that is. Does Public Works have a mechanism for that?
Not at the moment. We are ESRI licensed, and we're going to have a meeting on Friday to review our ESRI. ESRI is
Right.
the GIS mapping software that we use. Our license does have access to a couple tools that we want to implement. One of them, it's already in use. We're using the playground equipment inspection tool, and that's through our ESRI tool. I think I mentioned that at the Monday meeting. We want to use that tool for reporting things like sidewalk cracks or sidewalk issues. That the position of the GIS point is important, not just saying the intersection, but someone
Exactly
being able
where
to
it
take a
is.
picture and log it. So we looked at the see click it tool that for resident reporting issues, and then they could follow up through the platform. So we have discussed the various technologies to improve how we're tracking issues in the system. Currently, we're using a web form that generates an email, and then it goes into our email system, and it requires someone to go back onto the website to close that out and manually respond to the individual. So we want to make improvements to the area. It's a matter of bandwidth. We've got various projects, and these projects take some time to develop, test, and then implement. But it is on our radar to get it done. It's
Understood.
the competing priorities.
And the final thing that I wanted to bring up was just the stakeholder list. With the packets, we used to always have a listing of organizations or entities that we would meet with various times. And I was just wondering if we can begin to circulate that. I kind of feel like we've fallen away from meeting on a regular basis, be it as needed or every year, or every 3 years. It's handy to have that. So I'm just wondering if we can begin to circulate that around again.
It was part of the packet for the July meeting.
Mm.
Yeah,
It's
been-
one of our regular documents that we include in the packet.
Right, I looked, I must have missed it somehow. It
It's
was the
there.
thing that actually has.
This one?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this is the
Is that
website.
in the city man?
No, it's at the end, number 25. This is, yeah, it's where it always is.
Ah, I must have missed it.
Yeah.
So we need to get back to actually taking a close look at that, and I just feel like we've not been really able to meet with some of the stakeholders on a timely fashion over the past 2 years.
Well, I know that during the 2 years that I've been here, we've been diligent in following up with meetings that council has requested. The challenge we have is
Yes,
some folks don't
yes.
want to meet with us. And it's difficult to meet with stakeholders that either their time don't allow or don't want to meet with us.
Understood.
Yeah, but
understood.
if there's any particular ones that you feel that we haven't been able to fulfill in the last 2 years, please let us know. We'll work on the scheduling those. Currently, I believe we're booked through September. Is that right, Ms. Anderson? So we're booked through September. So I welcome any feedback on what you want to schedule starting in October.
Okay.
The dates that are available.
I definitely still want to talk to the GHI board and some other homeowners associations.
Okay, so we will send an email for the October. I know that the GHI conversation has come up regarding scheduling, and our schedule leading up to July just couldn't allow it. So if you want us to prioritize that for October, we'll make it happen.
I think we should.
Okay.
Okay, yeah,
Speaking of the meeting schedule, I did notice that we have WSSC in September, and I kind of assumed that was going to be about GHI, that we would be talking to them about that issue.
No, that meeting is specifically to present on the bids that WSSC received for the
Got it.
demolition of the tower and the work around the tower. So this is one of the things that council explicitly requested, that WSSC come back and present to
Right.
council on that work.
Okay.
Now, we could expand the topic. We could invite GHI to the meeting and talk about other things that are related to.
Well, I mean, I just think that they always want to talk about the pipe issue, and if we don't have any updates from WSSC, I feel like they come and they ask us about it, and we sort of shrug our shoulders. So if we can actually
Mhm,
make that interaction happen, that would be really great.
mhm.
well, I think it's a two-pronged thing when you talk about the pipes. On the one hand, we're experiencing more and more breaks, water main breaks and whatnot. And some of those are directly related to the challenge, the problem between GHI and WSSC regarding where the meters are. But I think stormwater management and just working together with them on that, I think there's a number. I think if we asked the GHI board, they would give us a long list of things to talk about. So it's just important to check in. I don't want to take up too much time on this. I've taken up 15 minutes. So I know there's some additional discussion. We're going to touch on council rules a bit. Is that right?
The council rule discussion was about the consent agenda item. There are other things in there that if you have time and the desire to talk through, we can. I know at Monday's night meeting, we briefly discussed how to manage meeting requests with external entities. The standing rules explicitly address that. So
Yes, they do.
if you want to discuss that further, I think we can. I'm not aware of any other standing rules issues.
I think it was originally on there because of the consent agenda, which,
There's a couple of things, not that, but in section 5, number 3, I just want to come back. It'd be really getting those action items and sending out a thank you letters practice that I really want to try and get to as we move forward. Also, in a few sections, there's a reference to having 6 council members weigh in to take an action. For example, that comes up in section 8 on disorderly conduct, but not so much specifically that, but I just think that in most sections of the council rules where it says 6, it should simply say supermajority. As we know, there are times when council members are traveling, and to have 6 in there when you should only have to have 5 would be helpful.
I think at least some of those are actually in our charter.
that's
That's
the
not
budget,
just
yeah.
a standing rules change. That, I think at least the one about the budget, I'm pretty sure I looked up and was actually specified in the charter.
Right. There's some other places in there, Section 8. And also, I guess that's in Section 7, under number 4, there is a discussion about petitions and requests. And it sort of implies that written comments or people signing in ahead of time, ahead of the meeting, it's sort of implied. It doesn't really say that exactly. It says that people can submit petitions or requests in writing to the city manager or to council in advance of a meeting. We would deal with those first. But I'm wondering the idea of having folks sort of jot down their petition or general subject, is that really too much to ask?
The sign-in sheet for petitions, so that people, if people have petitions, that they, list their name and maybe the topic they want to petition about.
Yeah. And that would be helpful when we have a number of residents. People might be here to petition on the same topic, and to know that there are 2 or 3 people there all on the same topic would be helpful, just because we could have them work together perhaps. I'm just kind of tossing that out. This is a discussion, so I'm just kind of tossing that out. Is that something council would like to see or like to try?
I'm not sure writing their name down and the topic they want to petition about is a particularly onerous barrier. That way we know, do we have, that way we would also have a sense of, because sometimes we have a lot of people in the room, but actually only a couple people have a petition they want to make. It doesn't seem overly challenging to have people, I mean, and especially if we allow, I mean, I guess the petitions are early enough in the meeting, they kind of have to sign up at the beginning. But we allow people to comment on other parts of the meeting. But I think for the petition specifically, that would then, we could then track that with the petitions and requests spreadsheet.
I think any
Councilmember
additional effort
Pompey.
on people is
I would just say, and as someone who has spoken at public meetings, council meetings, county council meetings, et cetera, if you're a person who's speaking, it can be helpful to know, like, how many other people are speaking. Like, are there 12 people ahead of me on this list? Are there 3 people ahead of me on this list? It could just be helpful as someone who wants to speak at the meeting to know, to have set expectations for yourself. I mean, I've found that to be true in testifying in public hearings myself.
I agree with having a sign-in sheet. I think that makes sense.
Okay. Let's try that. I don't want to make it hard for people, but it would be helpful. Just if you're gonna petition or request, just sign your name and generally what the topic may be.
Mm-hmm.
We can try it. I mean, I don't think that there's any harm in that.
Okay. Is there any?
Did you want to
Public-
talk about the meetings issue? Or do you feel like that was resolved at Monday's meeting?
I feel like it's pretty clear. Yeah.
Okay, because I think it is important that when meeting invitations come in, it is fairly clear in the standing rules that those need to be made known to the entire council. And we can, I mean, it says specifically, unless agreed on by a majority of council, all members of council may attend any such requested meeting. However, we can decide, not that, as a majority of council, that it is not something that everybody needs to attend, that a subset can attend 3 or less. And then I think the important part of that is a report back, which doesn't always happen. But I think that's very key.
Well, that's exactly what happened on Monday. I think we need to be aware of the Open Meetings Act, and when we are talking with people, and conversations need to be had. And as was noted with the stakeholder meetings, sometimes entity, for whatever the reason, just doesn't want to come before council in a public meeting. I don't know what reason. There are good reasons or bad reasons for that. So somehow, council, there are issues that need to be dealt with. And unfortunately, sometimes stakeholders are just not willing to talk about them in public. So no, I don't think any modifications to the standing rules are needed there.
No, but I think, but adherence to them needs to happen.
Right, and that's exactly what happened on Monday. Yes, please, council member.
Yes, so I guess I would say, I don't know the context of what happened but I didn't hear about Monday's meeting until we were actually in session. So if possible, if we're going to have a separate meeting and all of council is not there, it would be great to have notification prior to the decision being made on who's going to actually attend that meeting. Because it all basically happened at the same time on Monday, where there's a meeting that comes up and then the conversation was who's going to be in it. And we didn't have the context behind it. So.
Okay. Well, sometimes, a stakeholder will approach the city manager or by email somebody from the county, and they say they want to talk to the city manager and the mayor. So
in that
we'll broach
case,
those.
can you email us to just let us know that that's happening?
Well, and I think that part of that needs to be potentially some pushback on that and say that is not the way Greenbelt works as a general rule, that it is, our standing rules say that if a request of a meeting is made, it needs to be presented to all of council. So part of that is the responsibility, if you get the request as mayor, to say, sorry, I can't just agree to this meeting as mayor, I need to bring it to the rest of council. And then there may be an agreement made that, okay, that's fine, that sounds good, go ahead and meet with them. Or, Ms. McKinney has some special expertise in that area, how about you join that? But I think the problem is
I wouldn't say it's a problem, I'd say.
well,
it's a practice.
I think the problem comes when we aren't, that notification isn't made to the rest of council, and the assumption is made that just because the meeting request was made, it needs to be accepted in the way it was requested.
Well, Mr. Summer.
I was going to add that there are some meetings that I can make sure to inform council ahead of time, because there are some routine meetings that are going to start happening again under the new county executive. For example, there's a quarterly deputy county administrator meeting that the city manager and the mayor are invited to, and that's their process. And those happen quarterly, and each quarter there's a topic that is decided by the chief administrative officer for the county. Tomorrow we have the state's attorney, the acting state's attorney, convene a meeting of the managers and the mayor, and that's her meeting, and it's not specific to Greenbelt. It's an open meeting for the mayor and the city manager, where the city isn't really. I would like to think that we were consulted and this meeting wouldn't happen unless we said we could make it, but the meeting's going to happen whether we're there or not. So I can be proactive about sharing when these meetings are happening, because they're going to happen with or without us. They're just a standard meeting that it's meant to be more of, here's the updates on these particular things. There are other meetings that happen that are in response to specific issues. For example, 2 weeks ago, the county emergency management called a meeting about the upcoming storm event. I received the email. Tim attended, but it was 2 inches of rain. We saw it was 2 inches of rain. It was going to be a smaller storm than the 5 inches of rain, and they were reacting to not calling a meeting when we got 5 inches of rain and there was a lot more damage. So they were reacting, and they invited the municipalities. I imagine that, Mayor, you must have gotten the email.
I got it. Wasn't able to.
But those kinds of meetings will happen with or without us, and they're meant to be more one-way communication rather a meeting where business is being discussed. So they're more informational meetings. So I think informational meetings, I think that they could just be shared as, hey, FYI, this is happening. Oftentimes, I don't have the discretion to invite others. There's some meetings I have discretion to send someone in my stay, but not bring additional folks.
I think that's a different sort of meeting than I think has, than came up Monday, which is really a specific meeting that is intended to be with the city of Greenbelt, not a general meeting for lots of municipalities.
And there are briefings occasionally. The governor's office at the conference recently held a briefing around some homeland security issues that have affected Greenbelt and a number of other municipalities. And that's the governor's office briefing mayors, just one person from council.
But
bringing
we could
information
still
back.
we could be informed of those meetings and what happened in them, though. I mean, that information could still be relayed to council, even if it's a more open format meeting like that. I mean, we're also interested in what's going on with regards to national security or, other emergencies.
Sure, sure. Any further discussion on that topic? Okay. It's 9:30, so I can't think of anything else except a few information items that we need to talk about. I had one that I'd like to just ask about. So I got a couple of texts or emails. It has to do with the mosquito treatments that the State Department of Agriculture conducted. There are people in our community that have sensitivities to whatever it is they were using. So that if you could, and I wanted to ask you ahead of time. So do you know that the spraying that happened yesterday, right? Right.
That was scheduled to begin as early as 7:30 and run until 2:30 a.m. And the idea of that timing is when it would be less
Fewest
people
people.
out, and it's also a time where mosquitoes are very active.
Yeah, I did get a note from one resident that was having some issues. Just
Mhm.
so.
And we,
Do you-
we,
is- yeah, is there like a number just for the government so they can kind of track these issues? Is there some contact at the Department of Agriculture of the county that we could direct these folks to?
There is a number, and I thought it was included in our post. But I think the Department of Agriculture contact information was included in a post, and they're to be followed up for increase. That's something that we don't handle. We don't
It's not
decide the
something we do.
location. We don't decide the chemicals that are being administered. We did get to weigh on I want to thank Councilmember Pompey for posting the map, because I think internally we wouldn't have posted, but I think in hindsight, there were residents that provided greater clarity.
Yeah.
And there wasn't anything confidential or confidential about it. It's just not our practice to do so, but I think it adds more information to
Yeah,
the
I
public.
think it was helpful, and I did
Yeah.
it because people were trying to create their own maps. Like,
Right.
is this what it is? Could it be here, or maybe we shift it like that? And I was like, all it was doing was riling people up and getting
Yeah.
people more and more concerned of like,
That's
we
right.
have no idea what's going on. So I was like, this is literally just a map with red lines on it, and it's very clear.
Right.
And this is where it's going to be. So I think in cases like that, it's probably better to just let the public know where exactly it's going to be, because it was sort of becoming something that it didn't need to become.
Correct, and I appreciate you just jumping in and really controlling the narrative around that. So all that to say is that we don't get to pick the sites. We did get to weigh in on a very narrow area that was sprayed. But our thought was that it's so close to the areas that were identified for spraying and the traps that we didn't think that that the risk of not catching on the mosquitoes might be greater than just expanding the area on the margin. So they raised it to us. They said they weren't required, but they share the risk profile for us, and we thought, well, there's
Yeah,
enough
I
of
didn't see
risk.
that map. It would have been
Yeah.
kind of helpful. But the thing that we don't control is
The-
if it's windy or if there are weather conditions, sometimes the Department of Agriculture will delay it 1 day or
Correct.
2 days. So it's like when you give people notice, you don't really know if it's going to happen. When they
Correct.
say it's going to happen.
The map that Councilmember Pompey shares, the map that I share with all of council, so it was part of the communication I sent to council, and I did disclose
Thank you, Mayor
what the
Pro Tem.
difference were, the red and the yellow. So that was included in the communication to council.
That's great. That's good.
Okay. Other information items? Jenny?
As a former journalist and current editor, I appreciate a good graphic, and that was like really well done. Like I was like, this gives everybody all the information that they need. So I just wanted to bring up, I sent out an email, I don't know if it was earlier this week or maybe it was last week, about doing a work session in the community, a conversations with council type work session, where it's not really a work session, but it's more of a chance for us to go out somewhere else in the community other than Greenbelt Center and just meet with residents, be available to them, talk to them, not with any real specific agenda, but just sort of increasing our accessibility. Because that's something I wanted to do since I got on council. I think it's really important that we're doing that, because people who live here in Greenbelt Center feel like we're very accessible. They see us at the co-op, they see us walking our dogs around the lake, but people in other areas don't necessarily have that kind of access to us. So I had proposed either the 25th or the 29th of September, but when I looked online, it looked like those were both held for maybe planning. But on the calendar that we were sent on Friday, there was nothing on them.
We just confirmed that this Monday, so 3 days ago for the 29th, we will have the county's master plan update before council. So the 24th will be the presentation on the zoning code update from the county. We hope to have received the approval for the zoning code update by that point. And as you know, we want to move forward with a code recodification project. However, it is not, it's a self-imposed timeline. So if you want to use the 24th, actually, no, we're going to change the 24th. I'm sorry, I misspoke. So September 22nd is a Jewish holiday, and we need to move our regular meeting
The
based on
22nd is a what?
Jewish holiday.
Oh, okay, sorry. I just
Yeah.
couldn't hear what you said.
So we'll need to move our regular meeting from the 22nd to the 24th.
Got it.
There is a competing event for the 22nd, and that is the date of the lottery for the ballot listings for the upcoming election.
Okay.
That starts at 7 o'clock, so it's just before when the official holiday kicks in, and we expect that that's a much smaller pool of,
Yeah.
a very specific pool of people. So we want to we need to move forward with that process. So moving that activity, it's a little more complicated, so
Yeah, for sure.
I think we should move forward with the 22nd. So the 24th is now council's regular meeting. So we will have to change, Benita, we're gonna have to reschedule the presentation on the code,
Is this September or October that we're talking about?
September. You mentioned the September 24th and the
Right.
29th.
Yes,
Mhm.
okay. Sorry, I'm just making
Yeah.
sure I'm on the right calendar.
And it's up on the screen.
So all of our work sessions are full for September then?
Correct.
Well, then what about October?
I don't think we have anything in October, do you?
October 1st is Yom Kippur.
Okay,
So
so,
not then. And then the 6th is a regular meeting, yes? No.
No, it will be
The 13th is the
the
regular.
third, second, and fourth, correct.
So,
Yes. That's also Indigenous Peoples' Day.
yeah, so you said Yom Kippur is the 8th?
First,
Yom Kippur is the 1st. Rosh Hashanah starts Monday, September 22nd. And Yom Kippur is sunset Wednesday, October 1st.
So we could potentially do a council community event either the 6th or the 8th?
Looks like it. But it does look like we may want to reschedule the regular council meeting from the 13th to the 15th or to the next week, because I'm not sure that everybody's going to be at the fall conference, but I think several of us will be.
Mhm.
That's correct. The only thing about October is it's getting kind of close to the election. So by council doing this, if there are other individuals that are running for council, they might feel as though it's not giving them the same platform as the rest of us have. I don't know how people feel about that.
I mean, they could come. I mean, there would be nothing barring anyone from attending these meetings and talking with people. I mean, it's a public meeting.
And by that point, we will know exactly who are the certified candidates. Well, but if by the 6th, yeah, yeah.
Okay, so I'm hearing a council discussion, council coffee type, well, I drink coffee at all hours, but what time are we talking about? But nonetheless, a council event on October 6th, and was there another one?
I mean, sorry. I'd like to do them quarterly, and I don't know that we need to book them all out right now, but I mean, I think that we need to be more diligent about being out in the community in places other than just at our meetings and at events, like as a body. So,
But then I think also because the 13th is not only the fall conference, but it's also a holiday. It's also a federal holiday.
I share your passion. That's one of the reasons why I kind of brought up trying to meet with some of our stakeholder groups. Literally, some of the homeowners associations in Greenbelt East have not really been met with by council in more than 2 years.
I know it's unfortunate that they didn't come to the one we held last year. I think we only had like two.
I think, was that 2 years ago? Or was it last year? It was 2
It
years
was
ago.
probably last year because I was on council. So, yeah. So is the 6th work then?
It does work on the calendar. It is a Sukkot holiday, but
Oh,
it's
okay.
not listed on the Prince George's County school calendar. So I've got
Okay.
that calendar up. It's not listed on their calendar, and we follow the school calendar.
We did.
So we would, because it's not on the county
Yeah.
calendar, county school calendar, we would treat it as a regular day to work for meetings for us. Okay, so October 6th, is there a preference for a time?
I think
And
the same
location?
time as we hold our regular meeting.
Okay, so 7:30 and space, location?
Well, we were over at Windsor Green. I was over at Windsor Green for National Night Out, and they have a great new clubhouse there. And I spoke to their community manager, Angel, and she said she would love to host something to have council over there, and that she'd be happy to help publicize and get the word out. And she said that the community has really become a lot more active in the past year or so over there. So, and she's anxious to host events and anxious to have us there. So.
They had a lot of committees they were trying to
They
recruit
did.
for
I
there.
was like, what is this, the
They do.
Greenbelt City Council here?
Well,
trying to recruit for committees?
They're pretty active.
Yeah,
you know,
they're
they
very
are.
active. So I
Yeah,
think that
mhm.
that would be a great first place for us to go because it's very accessible. It's for people who live in Greenbelt East. and-
Okay, excellent, that,
So I mean, you can
Windsor
reach
Green?
out to her.
Yeah.
I think you can find. I don't have her. She didn't have a card.
Okay,
But her info is on the website, and she can sort of see if that date works for them too. Of course, because I don't know when they have their condo board meetings and things like that.
Mhm.
I'm not in the know on all of that.
okay, excellent, we'll follow up.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, the only information item I had, and I'm going to try to get this written up as a report to go in the packet for Monday, but we are in the midst of a comment period for the surface transportation reauthorization. So this is something that was discussed at the Transportation and Infrastructure Services Committee. And so there's the opportunity for, the very short version is that the Department of Transportation, as well as the AASHTO, the Association of State Highway Transportation Departments, have put in some language and put in some requests to remove some of the opportunities for local funding that have been available in the past, and they would prefer all of the transportation funding to go to the states. And so rather than things like the Safe Streets for All, but also some other programs that have helped get funding directly to localities, despite the fact that municipalities and other local organizations have a lot of the roadways and actually maintain a lot of the roadways. So that's just something, and I think Jamie may be on some of these email lists for TIS too, but I think that's something we should pay attention to. The deadline to submit comment is August 20th. And it related to some of the proposals for the surface transportation reauthorization. So that's what I will try to get some of this stuff written up in time to get it included in written form for the packet on Monday in the council report section. But
So, well, whatever we come up with, Terry and Jamie will probably be able to craft some
yes,
correspondence.
yeah.
And I don't know if NLC has sort of.
They have some
generic
talking points. They
talking
have some
points.
talking points, and there was a webinar last Friday that I think went over some of the main talking points that I believe I now have the slides from that. I think I saw those had come into my email the last couple of days, so I can share those as well. Yes, they have some suggested talking points.
That'd be helpful. Let's see, is there anything else we need to cover, to touch on? Because if not, I suggest we end this work session and call it a night. So tomorrow here in this room,
Virtual, the Save As You Throw Town Hall is virtual only.
okay.
It will be recorded if people want to watch the recording afterwards, and then I think there will be generated some FAQs, whatever
Yes,
questions
yeah.
get asked, we'll make those also are available in a written format, but it is virtual only. That was, I mean, GHI is the biggest stakeholder, and that is
Yeah.
their preference, so.
Yeah, so I would be attending the meeting from the municipal building. So
I
my
might come
office are
over
in
and
the
join you.
library, so if you want to join us there. For the agenda, we have you down as doing the welcome remarks.
Oh.
Then I'll do the background information on the municipal services and budget constraints. And then we'll turn over to Kristen Weaver and Lisa Robles for the presentation on the actual proposal. And we'll close out with a Q&A. The Q&A is going to be a basis for the frequently asked questions. We are setting up a project site on our website that will have the proposal, the frequently asked questions, and all information on there. I'm also trying to talk some folks into creating a little video. The inspiration was Ms. McKinney with an email she'd sent out about creating a video tutorial info. So we will also have that on our website.
Okay, and also on Saturday, I guess, CCI is having their block party over at their facility on Ora Glen, across from the post office. I believe that goes from 12 to 3.
That sounds right. I will be on site. We'll have our police department on site. We'll also be running a shuttle from the former CCI facility at Franklin Park to the new location.
Okay, let's pump that up as best we can to assist on our city social media. Any other events coming up over the weekend? No?
Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff going on. I think Senator Washington has 2 backpack giveaways this
Yes.
weekend. He's got one on Sunday from 11 to 2 in Palmer Park. I'm trying to pull up the name of the church.
Parkview Baptist
and
Church.
then he's got one on Sunday as well.
That's over on Good Luck Road at the SDA Church?
Yes, and then the Greenmount Elementary School PTA book
Oh, yeah,
book fair is
that's,
starting to collect books between 8:30 and 11:30. You can drop your books up at books off at St. Hugh's. So that is happening. That's Saturday the 9th, and they're doing it again on the 23rd. And again, that's at St. Hugh's, 135 Crescent. What else is
There's the
going on?
Motiva,
Yes.
art, the community art project at the entrance to Motiva. That's, I believe,
1
1
o'clock.
o'clock on Sunday. And then there's another opportunity to do mosaic tiles for the Braden Field art project from, I think, 1:30 to 2:30 at Spring Hill Lake on Sunday.
Okay. Busy
It's a
week coming
busy
up.
weekend.
So I'll see everybody tomorrow, probably, if not sooner or later. So thank you so much. Have a good evening.